It is Tuesday night in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Come on in and gather around. Gather around. We're ready to talk some Michigan State Spartan football, looking ahead to the 2023 football season. The Michigan State Spartans trying to rebound from a 5-7 season last year, a season wrought with injuries. They were better than 5-7 when they were healthy. You could say that about a lot of teams around the country. Now Michigan State's going to want to prove it with a new quarterback. Having to rely on some skill position players, hoping to get stronger in the trenches. Preseason camp about halfway done, and Michigan State, by all indications, things we're hearing inside the program, things that they're telling us publicly, also things we're hearing behind the scenes. It's no lie that they're happy with the size of the players and the depth. A lot of it's going to come down to execution, but they're going to be in a lot of games this year. I know that might sound like no big deal, but Michigan State is going to have a chance to win some games this year. Several games. We'll be talking a little bit more about that, and we'll talk to you. Maybe we might open up the lines a little bit and take some calls. We'll have to wait and see on that. Maybe we will. But if you've never been to Spartan Mag Live before, what we do is we take some questions over at SpartanMag.com at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State football and sports of all sorts. It is the daily narrative on Michigan State sports over at the Underground Bunker message board, which is part of the SpartanMag.com premium website. It's part of the On3 network over there at SpartanMag.com. Earlier today, it might have been last night, I can't remember. I lose track, but I mentioned we would be having Spartan Mag Live on Tuesday night again like we did last Tuesday. And I invite Michigan State fans, subscribers over at SpartanMag.com to post questions, and we will field those questions here tonight. Those of you that are subscribers probably looked at the list. You know what questions are coming. You're probably ready and excited and fired up about that. And you can also post questions over in the comments area. We will get to those as well. In the meantime, give us a like, subscribe to this channel. And if you're not a subscriber to SpartanMag.com and you like the content tonight, get over to SpartanMag.com. We would love to have you a subscriber in time for football season. If you like this, you will love SpartanMag.com. I'm pretty sure about that, pretty confident in saying that. It's good to see that we've got a lot of subscribers in already. I know that there's a lot of people that have watched Michigan State's Big Ten Network thing today. And if you have not seen it yet, just go to the DVR and press record and watch it after we're done tonight. Anyway, a lot of positives coming out of that. There's always positives when the Big Ten crew goes on the road and looks at member institutions across the Midwest and beyond the Midwest, Big Ten schools. That was definitely the case again today. Jerry DiNardo, Howard Griffith, impressed with some things pertaining to Michigan State, and they have to come away impressed with some things because that's the nature of their job and so forth. But it was a reiteration of things that we've heard already. Physicality. DiNardo said, along with the Michigan practice, it was the most physical practice that they've seen. Now that can be a little bit misleading because they are catching different teams at different stages of preseason camp. Last year, the Big Ten Network crew came to Michigan State, I think the day after a scrimmage. So Michigan State was going to be not in pads and going light. So they saw a light day. They didn't really see much from Michigan State that day. As it turned out, Michigan State was dealing with some injuries last year and depth issues. So they didn't really see it. And Michigan State turned out to be a mediocre team when the injuries hit, and for other reasons. So this time they caught Michigan State on a Tuesday. 2 days after the scrimmage. And it sounds like they were physical today, which surprises me a little bit. I'm not really sure what to make of all that. Mel Tucker and the coaches have been saying that they've tried this year to go to the ground less, to preserve bodies, and to try to ensure better health into the season and have fewer injuries. Unscientific approach, well, scientific in some ways, but it's hard to ensure anything when it comes to injuries in this sport, right? Last year, devastated by injuries. This year, trying to go to the ground less. So a key question is, well, if they're going to the ground less and trying to preserve themselves for the season, NFL style, does that mean that Michigan State's going to be less physical and maybe not as capable of playing physical football early in the season in 2023? Fair questions, but interesting that DiNardo and company thought that Michigan State was extremely physical today. Now, you can be physical even if you're playing thud and not taking people to the ground, but it's a moving target. Michigan State trying to arrive at the right answers with all of that. So that was interesting. Go over there, hit your DVR, but come back here and watch Spartan Mag Live for the rest of the evening. We are certainly glad to have all of you checking us out tonight. Let's go to question number 1 from MSU Polo out of Rockford, Michigan. And remember, gentlemen and ladies, when you post over the SpartanMag.com Underground Bunker message board questions for Spartan Mag Live, please tell us where you're from. Like MSU Polo from Rockford. I don't know if it's Polo or Paulo. I'll call him Polo. He says he's from Rockford. We appreciate that. Tell us where you're from. adds a little bit of flavor to the broadcast. Over in the comments section, let us know where you're from over there as well. MSU Polo from Rockford, Michigan says, thanks, Jim. Curious to hear if you've got any insight on the defensive alignment that the Spartans will likely use to rush the passer on obvious passing downs. It seems like Brule, Winman, and even By Job all have high-end skills in that area, but it's not as clear as to who the best down linemen are for that. Getting off the field on third down was a huge issue last year. Good question. I do think Michigan State's going to have more favorable down and distance situations on third down more often this year. Now, in any football game, you're going to get teams in third and long. Michigan State had trouble with that last year. They had a lot of sacks and a decent number of pressures compared to their Big Ten peers. But Scotty Hazelton, to his credit, says that stat can be misleading. It's because Michigan State was on the field so often and faced so many passing situations that just by volume of opportunities, they're going to get more pressures and sacks. But in terms of a percentage situation, he did not like how often Michigan State pressured the quarterback percentage-wise. They want to do better with that this year. And I do think they will stop the run and create advantageous third down situations for the Michigan State defense this year more frequently. Now, there's going to be teams that will pass on first down and move the chains, and Michigan State's got to prove they've got the crowd together back there as well, of course. But in terms of your question, third down pass rush situations, what's the alignment going to look like? Provided Michigan State has a chance to substitute in if the other team's not going up tempo. When they get in their dime or whatever they call it, because teams usually play nickel as their standard regular defensive personnel group now on defense. 5 defensive backs, of course. They go pass situation defense. They'll go from 4 down linemen to 3. Now, a lot of times last year, they're 4 down linemen with 1 standing up. I think you'll still see that. Hazelton did that all the way back at Kansas State. Last year you'd see Winman stand up when he was a defensive end. Pietrowski a little bit when they had him. I think he would stand up too. But defensive end situations, or passing situations, Jacoby Winman, the starting middle linebacker, I'm expecting him to go down to the edge as a stand-up edge lineman. Michigan State's best pass rusher last year. They'll want to have him over there as a pass rusher. Maybe not. Maybe sometimes on the edge, maybe sometimes from the middle. And they're working on him with his pass drops too, so you don't know always who's coming on the pass rush. If other people emerge as pass rushers, it can give Michigan State more flexibility and put more doubt into the pass blockers for the other team as to who's coming on the rush. If they can get other people to rush the passer well, and Winman can drop in coverage well, that can create problems for an offense. But Winman, most of the time, I'm expecting him to be on the edge like it was a lot of times last year. The normal defensive ends, you've got Bogle, you got Zion Young. Bogle has 9 career sacks dating back to when he was at Florida. We didn't see much from him as a pass rusher last year. Went down with an injury in week number 4. Zion Young is somebody who came in as a stopgap type of player last year due to injuries. Was solid against the run, stiff against the run, sturdy against the run, beyond his years as a teenager. Big guy, 6'6". And I've been hearing really good things about him from other offensive linemen, about Zion Young's ability to rush the passer. Maybe not a guy, I've not watched him enough to see if he can really turn the corner with the hip flexibility, ankle flexibility, and all those things. I'm just hearing that he's slippery. It's hard to get your hands on him for a big dude. He's just pretty good at maneuvering and slipping and sliding. I think you're going to see more out of Zion Young as a pass rusher this year and as he continues to mature. Let me check. Make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. All right, we got everything's working. Looks like the sound is going. Anyway, as far as defense, Tumise Adeleye, the transfer from Texas A&M, big guy at 280. I'm not sure he's a natural pass rusher. He still has a lot to prove of himself as a football player. All indications are he's doing pretty well. He's only played 2 college football games in his life, maybe 3 last year before he was injured. He's only played 2 or 3 football games since, I think, 2018. So he's got to get his feet wet and learn as he goes in a lot of ways. So don't expect him to be Lawrence Taylor right out of the chute. But I think he's got a good chance to start, play a lot of snaps. And in pass rush situations, I think he'll move into defensive tackle. They've said they've worked with him in that capacity, and he can give you a plus athlete at 280 interior. Zion Young, good pass rusher. He could move inside a little bit more. But you're talking, Brandon Wright, they've worked with him as a pass rusher in the past. He'll get some more chances. He's not been ultra productive in the opportunities that he's had, but he's still hanging around. By Job, like you mentioned, the most athletic defensive lineman in the program, has a lot to learn. Hazelton and Deron Reynolds were talking about if he's got a guy that has one trait that they can put on the field and get something out of him in pass rush situations, they will. But I'm expecting Bogle to get some chances and Zion Young to get some chances. You got Winman out there. In terms of the 3 down linemen is what you're asking. I think Adeleye is inside, and Zion Young on an edge, Bogle on an edge, Winman standing up, 4-man rush. That's what I'm guessing. Does that mean Barrow comes off the field? Defensive tackles come off the field? Probably so. So that's my guess on that. And there's some pretty good horsepower in those people that I just mentioned. Question number 2, Mike from Parts Unknown. Mike M-O-V from Parts Unknown didn't tell us where he's from. And I can't remember where he's from. He's posted before. But, Mike, that's a demerit on you, man. You got to tell us where you're from. He says last year's pass defense was woeful. And he says, could you give me a reason to be optimistic that it will be improved in 2023? All right, first of all, communication. They're really harping on that this year, as they should. That's an element of quality control, which last year went downhill when Snow and Xavier Henderson were injured in September. Xavier Henderson came back later in the year, but I asked Mel Tucker that question right after they were injured. I can't remember if it was after the game or the following Monday press conference. I said, Snow and Henderson are your 2 most intelligent defensive players, handling a lot of the communication. How much of a problem is that going to be? And he kind of said, not a problem, we're going to be okay. But that was coach speak. It was a problem. He didn't want to give his players excuses or cite weaknesses for the opponent or whatever. But now, 11 months later, Hazelton came out this week, and I think Tucker did as well, said it was a problem when they lost Henderson. So this year, Henderson did a lot of it. This year without Henderson, the coaches are saying that all 4 in the defensive backfield, 5 including the nickel, are handling more of that. They're sharing more of that, which should lead to better overall communication. Last year, they had too many miscommunications on defense, partly because they had a lot of players coming in and out and so forth. But what I call same pageness in the back 7, being on the same page in terms of pass defense, too often blowing leaks, blowing coverages and assignments. I thought we were in this. You thought I was in that based on this motion and the way this receiver breaks and how we do this. Too much slippage there. And if that slippage continues, they're not going to get better in pass defense. But they know it's a problem. They hired Jim Salgado as cornerbacks coach. Last year, Mel Tucker was cornerbacks coach. Did not work out all that great. Mel Tucker was thinking outside the box. He says, I'll coach corners. We'll bring in Brandon Jordan to be the pass rush specialist coach, and that looked okay in September. Pass rushing then really leveled off. Like I mentioned last week, Brandon Jordan, a respected, specializing coach in football, but not a guy that was going to recruit, not a guy that was really, he's more of a pro guy. So he's gone. Tucker didn't want to coach corners anymore, thought it was best to bring in Salgado. Salgado, good reputation. Cornerback play, I expect to improve. Communication, I expect to improve. You lose Henderson, so that's a veteran component back there. That's gone. Mangum, Malik Spencer, 2 good, talented safeties, but inexperienced. Spencer came in, played a few games at the end of the season last year. Mangum started a couple of games, missed some games when he had the concussion against Ohio State, but he had some experience. True sophomores, limited experience-wise. They're going to be good in the future. Are there going to be some thin ice breakages back there? Probably here and there, but it can't happen as frequently as it did last year. I'm guessing it's going to be better. They've taken steps to improve that. They know they need to get better because they know that the defensive front 7 is going to be good. Those guys in the back end need to step up and do it. And they've got some good young talent on the way up. Over there at corner, you got Chuck Brantley coming back. He's experienced as a junior. Dylan Tatum, I don't know if he's a corner or if he rotates back to safety or plays some nickel. Played corner last year because they needed him to. He's more built like a safety nickel type of guy, but he's over at corner if they need him. Caleb Coley, someone to look out for. Been talking about him quite a bit. Redshirt freshman who would have gotten on the field more last year, but he was injured in practice last year. Otherwise, he would have rotated in. He's made some plays here in the preseason already. He'll be competing for a corner job. Marquis Lowry's a guy that I think started a game or two back in 2021. Hard hitter, missed most of last year with an injury. He's in the mix. Terry Roberts, the kid who transferred in from, he's not a kid, I think he's a sixth-year senior from Iowa. He was a second stringer at Iowa, went to Miami for spring practice with the Hurricanes. Things didn't work out there, went back in the portal, came to Michigan State. Maybe not a man-to-man type of guy like they want in Miami. At Iowa, he's more of a zone guy. I've heard that they kind of like him. That's why they got him, but I hear that they're liking him so far. And they've got the other guy from Wisconsin. I don't know what to expect from him, but somewhere in there is 2 or 3 starting corners. Now, if you have 6 or 7 of them, maybe you don't have any, but I think Brantley's proven himself. He can play a little bit. Marquis Lowry can play a little bit. Coley's on the rise. Tatum's been in there. Get them on the same page. They should be okay. And I'm not guaranteeing it. You ask a fair question. You want reason for optimism. The reasons, more emphasis on communication. They understand they had a quality control problem there. Coaching changes, good talent, albeit young talent. Those are 4 reasons to be for optimism. But like you, I'll believe it when I see it, but they're working on it. And if they're good back there, then that's a major step toward this being a sneaky good, dangerous Michigan State team. All right, let's go over here to the comments area. We've got Boss Maine says, "What's up, folks?" Stu Redmond says, "Hey, comp." Eric M says, "Hey, comp." Brad Fashenko checking in from Austin, Texas. Joe Marsh says, "Hey, comp." So you've got Boss Maine in the middle. Stu Redmond running the point. Eric M on the wing. Brad Fashenko, stretch 4. Joe Marsh, shooting guard. That's your starting 5 tonight. Spartan Mag Live, thanks for coming in and being a part of it. It's good to have the Spartans checking in and getting excited about Michigan State football in the month of August. Michigan State, tough year last year, but the tradition is thick, going all the way back to the 50s and 60s. You know the score. You know what's going on. Some dangerous teams in the 70s, some good, very good moments in the 80s, good moments at the end of the 90s, great run, D'Antonio era. A lot of diehard fans, great tailgating, great campus, beautiful campus, great university. I'll sit here and I'll tell you it's a great campus and a great university, but you're not going to see me wearing a Michigan State shirt and doing pom-poms. You don't need that from your correspondent here in East Lansing. I'm in the press box. Well, I'm not. That's a picture of the press box. But I can say good things about the university because I believe in the university. It's a great university. There are other great universities in the Midwest. Michigan State's one of them. Those of you that attended Michigan State or have been fans of Michigan State for a long time, you know what I'm talking about. Football tradition, it's outstanding. One of the top 25 programs in history. 6 national titles since 1951 or whatever it is. Some great moments in the 50s. Those of you locally here in East Lansing may have watched PBS last night. They showed, they replayed the Through the Banks of the Red Cedar documentary. Maya Washington, really good for Michigan State people. Gives you a lot to be proud of about the university and what it was doing in the 50s. Way ahead of the grade in a lot of ways. Something to be proud of. Anyway, Michigan State fans out there, I've got a lot of respect for you. Hanging with the team, hanging with the program, getting ready for kickoff coming up September 1st against the Chippewas on a Friday night at Spartan Stadium. Let's look at the comments here. Daniel Berry, Sports Highlight, says, "What's up?" Eric M. from Roswell, Georgia. He's in the house. Brian V. says, "Yeah, a surprise Spartan Mag Live." Nice. Now, Brian V., if you're over at Spartan Mag Underground Bunker message board earlier today, you would have known. But I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm not going to give you a demerit on that one. Mark Henfrey says he's here from Grosse Pointe. Good to see Mark. Jason G says comp is one smooth MF. I don't know about that, but I'll take it as a compliment. I'm open to criticisms as well. Constructive criticism, as always. Old Tuck from South Hamlin Elementary. He says, with so many issues in the C and the D area for years, why don't we do more Mike Dennis type of personnel at tight end? Talking about the C and D gap for many years. Yeah, tackle, tight end blocking. We've been talking about that for a long time, right? I was pointing that out a lot last year when the run game was failing. And a lot of people want to blame the offensive line. Offensive line was not great last year, but I think it was, Michigan State was 8th in the Big Ten in yards per carry. I thought offensive line blocking could have been was better than that stat. Jalen Berger was learning as he went along. But a lot of times tight end blocking, it'd be a tight end slippage, a tight end crack in the blocking that would prevent, it would stop a run play and end up being a 1 yard gain when maybe it should have gained 4. I've been saying that for a long time here on the podcast and elsewhere. This week, Tucker pointed it out on Monday. He said, I'm not going to be leaving it up to the offensive line. I'm not going to be blaming. He didn't use the word blame, but he wasn't going to be citing the offensive line if there's run game problems. He was talking about running backs, wide receiver blocking, and he mentioned tight end blocking twice. Sounded to me like something happened in that practice. He did say there was one play that the tight end didn't get a block finished, but I suspect it's happened more than once for him to bring it out, and he kind of got into his Nick Saban routine, a little bit irritated about tight end blocking. He was telling us that, but coaches a lot of times at press conferences are also speaking to their team that way. That means the players and the coaches. That part's got to get straightened up. So they're on it. Do they have the personnel to get tight end blocking? You make a good point. Well, they bring in more of a Mike Dennis type of tackle, a yackle. We talked about that in the bunker today. Michigan State's had yackles in the past, like a big 280-pound offensive lineman, offensive tackle type of guy to play tight end to give you that blocker. In the D'Antonio era, Michigan State was more of a two-back offense, but this Michigan State offense, a lot of times, it's a two tight end offense with a move, tight end, and H. So they play two tight ends a lot. Why not, bring someone along as a yackle? You see that a lot in the NFL. I'm not sure. I just don't think they've ever done it that way. Tight end is a featured component of this offense, more so than most. Mentioned it on the message board today that Michigan State had 52 receptions by tight ends last year, which is a pretty good number. Compared that to the other seasons over the last 12 years. Pretty good number last year, even though in some ways they weren't as reliable as you'd like them to be. So obviously they'd like to get big 6'6", 6'5", 6'4" tight ends. They can do all of it. Can threaten the seam, run some routes, good hands, and block. Everybody would like to have that, right? Michigan State's trying to get that. It's been 4 years. They don't quite have that type of talent. Jay Johnson wants it. It's up to other people to recruit it and bring it in, whether it be through high school ranks or the portal. Michigan State went to the portal this year and brought in 3 tight ends out of the portal. Tyneil Hopper from Boise State, Jalen Franklin from Wisconsin, and Ademola Olunye from Norfolk State. Went back and watched their film after they committed to Michigan State. Franklin didn't play very much at Wisconsin. They've always gone with yackles and big tight ends, but you spend 3 or 4 years at Wisconsin, you're going to learn to block. And in the spring scrimmage, I thought Franklin blocked pretty well. I thought he was the best blocking tight end that day. Hopper, he's only about 6'2", 6'3". I watched him against Boise State. Against one of the games, he made a nice catch down the seam against somebody. I saw him in practice last week. I think he's got good hands, good receiver. He's not the biggest guy in the world, though. But in terms of tight ends in the portal, there's not a ton to choose from. So you can say you want tight ends, but you look in the portal, and it is what it is. The portal sounds great and fancy with TCU going out last year, getting 4 or 5 players, having a Cinderella season. We'll see if they can do that again. Basketball, a couple of teams have done it, but there's a lot of other teams that have went in the portal and not gotten a lot. The portal is a discard pile. They're discards, most of them. So if you're trying to fix something there, maybe you can add some depth here and there, but going to try to fix instantly a tight end situation. I mean, Michigan State losing Barker and Tyler Hunt last year, if any team could really advertise we've got a need for a tight end right now in the portal, it was Michigan State, and they went out and got some reserve type of guys in my estimation. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll be great. I don't know. But they addressed it. They've put a lot of those guys, those two are single-year guys, Hopper and Franklin. I don't even know if Franklin's on scholarship, but they've invested roster space and scholarships in the tight end position, trying to get something out of there, and it's imperative to get it done soon. Now, for this team to get something going. Now, people talk about what does this team need to be this year to be good, and it's easy to say, well, the running backs have to rush for 1,200 yards, and the quarterbacks have to be good. Well, yeah, I think they've got ability at those positions. Wide receivers are unproven. That's true. Beyond personnel, it's those two things we've already talked about tonight. And we'll talk about it going into the season and probably after the first couple of games. Same pageness in pass defense, and specifically tight end blocking. I think offensive line blocking is going to be pretty good. I think Nathan Carter's going to be a good ball carrier. Berger will be improved. I think Berger's a second stringer. Mangum's going to give him some short yardage. Some goal line, there'll be times when Mangum's the hot back. Offensive line, I think, is going to be solid in the run game. Can the quarterback identify fronts and get into the correct play, get out of the play correctly, choosing directions and those things? That remains to be seen. Noah Kim has more practice experience in that, and he's done it in games a little bit. He might have an edge there. I don't know. But I think they got the components to be okay in the run game. It'd be a lot better if the pass game can keep defenses honest, for sure. Tight end blocking is the question mark. So I'm not talking about Carter's got to do this and Kim's got to do that. That's obvious. Got to stop the run. That's obvious. Be on the same page in the back on defense and tight end blocking on offense, and Michigan State can be a quality team. Quality team. All right, here we go. Let's go to Thomas Coburg. Colberg said he saw that Jingham Mangum is in a red jersey and Smith is in a cast. Who is going to be at safety? Yeah, that's a great question. Mangum, the injury situation there is not that serious with him. Armarion Smith, you have to wait and see. Guy that transfer came in from Cincinnati. I've not heard much about his situation, but you're exactly right. Exactly right. Safety, I think, is the thinnest position on the team. And that pertains to a question I'm going to get a little bit later in the mailbag. Let me see if I can find it right now. What do we have here? Let's see if I find that question. I'll shift gears to that question right now. It's question number 6. Adam from Grand Rapids. He says he has 2 questions. He says, if any, which true freshman do you think will get on the field this year? He also asks, if Hauser takes another step forward this week and during the Saturday scrimmage, is that enough for him to win the job? It seems like he has the momentum, and it could be his job to lose at this point. Interesting comments. First question. I'll take second question first about Hauser and Kim. Noah Kim, according to my sources and everything I saw, heard, and so forth in the spring, Noah Kim was the guy getting most of the second-string reps. He was the guy that was putting pressure on Peyton Thorne. He's the reason that Peyton Thorne wasn't sure he'd still be starting, and the reason that going to other pastures looked more attractive to Peyton Thorne. There were other reasons as well, but Kim was the guy that was providing that. In the summer, Hauser had a really good summer, came into fall camp, and no longer looked like a true freshman. Second year on campus, excellent talent, and he's closed the gap considerably on Noah Kim to the point that in Saturday scrimmage, equal reps, 1s and 2s, equal productivity from what I understand, 1s and 2s. Today, Big Ten Network was out there watching it. DiNardo, Howard Griffith, they reported the same thing. Equal reps with the 1s and 2s. To them, it's too close to call. So that thing looks really close. And you're right, Hauser's the guy with the momentum, but Kim has been pretty good too. I'll talk a little bit more about that position battle in another question later on. We'll go back to the first question now. Adam from Grand Rapids asks, if and which true freshman do I think will get on the field this year? Now, a couple of weeks ago at SpartanMag.com, I did a story handicapping which freshman I felt had the best chance to get on the field. And the old axiom is, the further you are away from the ball, the better the chance you have to get on the field as a true freshman. Further away from the ball, wide receivers and corners have the best chance, and running backs occasionally. Sometimes safeties, although that's more of a cerebral position. So Michigan State has a need at wide receiver, having lost Jaden Reed and Keon Coleman. Job openings. So I mentioned that Isaiah Johnson and Jalen Smith were two that had a good chance to get on the field. And I put an edge on Isaiah Johnson. I just thought I thought his film was maybe a little bit better. Both of them had really good film, underrated incoming freshmen. However, since camp has started, we've been hearing a lot of good things about the wide receivers. Trey Mosley doing good things. He's been a good, solid player for a long time, doing even more now. Montori Foster's a guy that's needed to step up. He has stepped up. Alante Brown, go to the portal, get him out of Nebraska. He's been looking what they expected. He's good. He's a factor. Christian Fitzpatrick, they're happy with him. Now you're hearing Antonio Gates. They're excited about. It's exciting to me, in my opinion, if you're a Michigan State observer, it's exciting to hear compliments for Antonio Gates. Tucker mentioned him yesterday, had a nice block on a play. Howard Griffith mentioned him today. I think Jay Johnson mentioned him. 3 different people with shout-outs to Antonio Gates in the last 24 hours. Very favorable for him. I'm not guaranteeing that Antonio Gates Jr. is going to be in the playing group, but that's really good indication for a guy that I thought was one of the more talented incoming freshmen in the class last year. I thought he was a 4-star talent, even though I think most people had him as a 3-star. I thought he was a 4-star talent, but in high school, turned on that talent once in a while, but I wasn't sure how much he loved the game. I wasn't sure how much drive he had to be great. Comes to a football program, spends 12 months, weight training, training table, part of a Division I major college football program for 12 months, and all that talent is starting to gain traction. Great sign for him in the future. So a lot of the wide receivers, and we came into as observers, we came into August expecting Terrell Henry to be right there, a guy that made an impact last year as a kick returner. Not a great kick returner, but he provided a role that was needed as a true freshman. Kind of expected him to be the number 2 slot guy. Mosley was a slot guy solely last year. I asked him if he's going to be moving outside a little bit more, and he says he expects to. But if he's the starting slot, Henry, I think, is the number 2 slot. So I don't think there's any disappointments among those leading candidates as the next men up at wide receiver, which means, in my opinion, Isaiah Johnson's chances of getting on the field are a little less than I said in theory 3 weeks ago. So I thought Isaiah Johnson when I wrote that 3 weeks ago, but since the good things we're hearing about wide receivers in camp thus far, that decreases the chances. More of a chance for Jordan Hall. I think Jordan Hall is a second-string middle linebacker. Brule is a second-string linebacker. Teote is a second stringer. You know, he got banged up a little bit in the spring scrimmage. He's still coming back from that a little bit. So Jordan Hall's getting in there, getting some reps, playing fast, and he does not look like a freshman. Physically, he's filled out pretty well, runs well. Jordan Hall's going to play. By Job, we mentioned that earlier, true freshman defensive end, pass rush situations. I think he could get a look. And I don't discount, and they think he's got freakish ability. That was Deron Reynolds, defensive line coach's comment, freakish athletic ability. But don't overlook Andrew DePape also. Now, DePape has to show that that he can do all the things needed to do. But he's got all kinds of athletic ability also. Andrew DePape had excellent high school film. Job, more of a freak than DePape is, but don't sell DePape short. I mean, there's a chance, that everybody's assuming that by Job is a freshman that might have one of those traits that they can use in passing situations. Don't close the door on the possibility that DePape might be able to do that. Keyshawn Blackstock, junior college transfer. I don't know if I think you're asking about freshman, but that's a junior college guy. He's second string left tackle. He's competing with Baldwin there at left tackle. He'll be on the field. He'll be in the playing group. Could become a starter at some point during the season. No surprise that Blackstock should be on the field. Now, in terms of, Jalen Barberin is another guy that they've raved about with his speed. Do they have a special play for him? Get him in space? Maybe. But if he's on the field, that's alert to the defense, I would imagine. So I don't. That might be overthinking it a little bit. But Barberin is a guy that maybe they'll try to put something together for him at some point this year. Dark horses for freshmen. Eddie Pleasant, corner. I just mentioned that Michigan State's got a lot of candidates at corner, but he's been checking in as one of the fastest guys on the team, 5'11", 178 from Tampa, Carrollwood. I went back and looked at Pleasant's high school tape in my notes on him when he committed to Michigan State. My comments about him, well put together at 5'11", physical as a tackler in high school, physical and getting off of blocks. So he comes in with all that speed plus physicality for that position for a teenager on the way in. I wrote in my notes, he's comfortable playing press coverage at the high school level in Florida, does a good job of leveraging the ball and leveraging blocks with technique, physicality, and IQ. Good short area quickness, I wrote. And I wrote, in watching his huddle film, not sure about next gear speed. That didn't mean that I doubted it. It just was not shown on film. Then he shows up here and has, in terms of miles per hour, is one of the fastest on the team. So check that box. His film last year really didn't get a good look at his ball judgment on the huddle film, so I'm not sure about that. At that time, Michigan State had a commitment from the kid from Texas, Yates, who was a 4-star. He decommitted. And so Michigan State gets Eddie Pleasant out of Tampa, underrated type of guy. Comparing him to Yates, I said physicality does not come as natural to Yates as it does to Pleasant. I thought Pleasant was more naturally physical as a football player. I said Yates was a little bit awkward, not the greatest balance, not sure about Yates' top end speed for either of them, but that's since checked out positively for Pleasant. Yates is supposedly 6'2", Pleasant was listed at 6 feet. Now they're listing Pleasant at 5'11". I don't know what's going to become of Yates. I can't remember who he committed to, but right now blind draw, got to make a decision. I would not trade Eddie Pleasant for Yates. Yates was a 4-star. I'd rather have Eddie Pleasant after he turned in that speed in camp so far this year. The physicality is going to be pretty good. Type of guy that might be able to help on special teams. Maybe Michigan State has the luxury of redshirting. I'm not sure, but keep him in mind as a dark horse. The other dark horse to possibly play, freshman Sean Brown, safety, defensive back, Simi Valley, California, 6'3", 190. On his high school film, claimed to run a 10.9 in the 100 meters. Maybe. League champion in high school in 110-meter hurdles. I think he was injured as a high school senior, so all of his film was junior film in high school. Big at 6'3". Hip turn, I wasn't sure about hip turn, but then he goes and shows hip turn a couple times. Rangy. Ball skills with interceptions as a junior. On offense, you see some of that speed here and there. Rangy, bigger type of guy. At corner, reminds me of the freshman, maybe even the sophomore version of Lamar Marshall, if you remember him way back in the Saban days, a guy that ended up being a safety, NFL player, and then an NFL linebacker for Washington. Sean Brown, Hazelton mentioned him a little bit on Monday, a guy that's getting in the mix a little bit. Now, why Sean Brown? 6'3", 190, he's got a senior. Speed checks out, it's got range. They're putting him on the field. He's getting a chance to do some things. A lot of people on defense are getting a chance to do some things. Second and third stringers are looking to see who's what because it goes pretty deep at every position except safety. At safety, you've got Mangum and Malik Spencer. You got Amarion Smith, the transfer from Cincinnati, and not much else. They tried Harold Joyner there in the spring. Now he's playing linebacker. At 6'4", 210, he wasn't going to be a safety. They tried it. You know, they had other safeties in the past that didn't pan out. That's a position that it seems like, I don't know if they put enough personnel in there. They might get caught this year. They got to stay healthy there at safety. Mangum's been out a little bit, but Sean Brown is a guy, because of the situation and his talent, I think Sean Brown is a guy that could figure into the playing group there. I see Malcolm Jones Sr.'s here. Malcolm Jones Jr. has been playing nickel in the spring he did. I would imagine Malcolm Jones could get a shot there at safety as well. All right, let's. So that's a good question about the safety situation. I think that's where the ice is thinnest on this team. Now, it's thin at tight end also because lack of proven blockers, but there's a lot of candidates there. And I think down the road, I think Michael Masunis, redshirt freshman, is looking pretty good. And down the road, true freshman Brendan Parachek looks like a good tight end. Parachek's fabulous all-around athlete. From basketball to baseball to punting, tight end, blocking, in high school, excellent hands. The blocking component, it's going to take some time. He's a youngster, but he's looking good for the future. But for right now, they're trying to figure that stuff out there, the blocking situation. What do we have here? Let me see if I've got. I'm going to open up the phone lines. I know Malcolm was trying to call last week, and we didn't take any calls, so I'm going to put that out there. Don't have to call, but if anyone wants to. I'll type it in here. That's not going to work. That's not going to work either. Well, I kind of screwed it up. I'll do it this way. Put it on there. Not begging anyone to call, but if anyone feels so inclined, I think my phone's working. We'll give it a shot if anyone wants to. All right, let's go to question number 3 from Michigan State student 25. This is the question that we alluded to earlier. Let me check here real quick to make sure. Don't have any trolls. Looks pretty clean. All right, Michigan State 25 says, what would you put the odds at for who starts the Washington game at quarterback? That's a great question. We'll put that one on hold for a second.
Call from
Malcolm Jones.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right, let's go to Lee County, Georgia. Malcolm Jones Sr. on Spartan Mag Live tonight. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing, sir?
Really good, really good. Thanks for calling in. Sorry we didn't get to you last week. I know you were calling in, but we had Nils on the line and we had to get some questions. But I wanted to get to you this week. So we opened up the phone lines. I thought you might feel compelled to call in. So what's on your mind?
I'm just relaxing and waiting for football season.
It's good. I think we all are, right?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to ask you too much for intel, but have you heard whether Malcolm's playing some safety, or is it just the nickel? Or you don't have to answer that question if you don't want to.
No, I haven't talked to him since they've been back to practice. I haven't bothered with him, so I just wait until I get up there to find out what he's going to do.
Now, last week you said are you coming up for the Central Michigan game, September 1st? Yes.
Yes, sir.
As you mentioned,
I'll be there.
And you're interested in going to see some lakes, right? Something like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we were talking about the lakes last week. So that's out there. If anyone wants to check in with Malcolm Jones Sr. and take him to the lakes. Now, Lake Michigan is a good hour and 20 from here, maybe hour 10. Talking about Grand Haven. The game's on a Friday. Malcolm, I'm going to be real busy on Thursday. You know, I got pregame stuff. It's a busy time. Otherwise, I might drive you out there, but maybe someone else. Well, if I'm really busy on game weeks, but
okay.
but the thought did cross my mind last week when you were throwing that out there. Maybe someone else will throw it out there. We'll have to wait and see. But keep me posted on that. Keep me posted.
I'll be there. I'll be there this Sunday, and I fly in. I get there in Lansing at 10:30 that morning. So
Friday morning.
If anybody want to pick me up? Okay. No, I'm gonna get there Thursday. We coming in early.
Okay.
I usually come in early and try to do a little sightseeing, go a little shopping.
That sounds good. I'll text you my number, and maybe we can do something. Maybe we can do something. We'll see. 'Cause I want you to have a good time. I want you to see everything that the state has to offer, at least part of it, not all of it, because, I mean, it's a vast state. There's more coastal area in the state of Michigan than there is from Maine to Florida. I've not actually paced that out, but I heard that once. I don't know if that's true trivia or not, but talking about lake coastal, the Great Lakes, from Detroit up to Mackinac, down to Chicago, and then Upper Peninsula, that's more coastline. The length of coastline along the state of Michigan is equal to that on the Atlantic seaboard from Maine to Florida. So there's a lot to see. You won't see it all in one day, but you might get a little taste of it, and I want you to see some of it for sure.
Yes, I just want to get a taste of Michigan. Every time I come up there, I'm always stuck at the hotel. I don't know too many folks, so I don't ever get out too much.
Okay. I'm going to put that on my list. I'm going to give you...
And I want to catch some of the tailgate because I missed a lot of the tailgate last year because I had to go back to the airport to get my stepson. So I missed a lot of the tailgating. We just got back in time for the game. So this year we coming in early, so I won't have to do all that running around.
How many people are coming up here with you?
We got like 10 coming.
Okay. I don't have enough. I don't have enough room to fit 10.
No. I mean, the people that coming, they gonna do their own thing. That's why I said I want to get there.
Okay.
So I was trying to get out so I can get out.
Okay.
Everybody's gonna do their own thing.
All right.
While they're there.
Okay. All right. I've got that in the back of my mind. We're gonna see if we can work something out. If not, maybe there's some subscribers out there that want to contact me. Maybe someone else might want to pick that up. But so what do you? So what's going on? What are you thinking about for football? What's on your mind football wise? Big Ten, Michigan State. What are you thinking?
This year I'm looking at. We need to play some of the classes 2022. I think if we give them a chance, because nobody's giving them a chance to play, and I think they can step up. Mel Tucker got faith in them. We should have faith in them too. I always see, the defense ain't this, the defense ain't that. But you got to get together and work together. So it takes a team effort. That's why it's called team. And all this negative, everybody, they went 5-7. Everybody's going to have a down year. Plus they had injuries. So, you just got to take time and put these guys together. If they ain't got no experience, you ain't looking for them to come on that field and be real strong. Everybody's going to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Now you understand that I have to point out the negatives because it's not my style as a commentator or a reporter to serve Kool-Aid. You ever heard of the term Kool-Aid? People that just like serve out all the rainbows and happiness about everything. That's not, we try to call it like we see it, try to have credibility and believability, if that's a word. So, but I agree with you. I think that there is good young talent in that secondary. Like I said earlier, just got to get them all on the same page, and they've got the ability to do it. So we'll see whether that comes to fruition or not. I think Caleb Coley's going to be a good one at corner. Charles Brantley's good. Ade Willie, Dylan Tatum, your son Malcolm Jr. There are players that are capable. And, last year I thought there were some portal players out there that didn't play all that great. Ronald Williams kind of disappeared. Amir Speed, had his struggles, but he's getting a free agent tryout with New England. And he did pretty well last week. It kind of surprised me, so good for him. But these young guys, they've got something, and they're going to get out there and they're going to get their chance. I know internally people are excited about them.
Yeah, Coley, Spencer, I don't see them. They don't play against my son, so I know what they can do from Georgia. I keep up with all the Georgia teams. So I know, how they played, and, all of them Cole came from a good school. Spencer came from a good school. And, Malcolm came from a good school. All those were top schools that played against each other, and I watched them. And I just think that if we give them a chance and don't put them down, because they freshmen or whatever, a red shirt, it's who get on the field and want to play. And that's how I feel. If you get out there, if you're good enough, put them out there to play. If they ain't good, then they don't play. That's how I feel.
They're going to get their chance.
My son, he a 4-star.
They're going to get their chance.
And my son,
Go ahead.
Yes, my son, he a 4-star. Mm-hmm. But I think he need to be out there starting. But if they feel that he's not in that spot, man, there's nothing we can do but sit back and wait. And like I tell you, if I have to talk to him, I explain to him. And he always tell me, Dad, I done got this far. I'm not worried about it. And that's the attitude that he got. And I like that attitude. And if they all had the same attitude, it can, the team could be better.
That's the attitude. I've been doing this for 30 years, covered thousands of players. And, hey, guys that have talent and patience and just want to work, good things usually happen to those people. I think, those that are expecting everything right away and go from team to team, that ice gets thin. What you're saying sounds productive and constructive to me. And I saw Malcolm in the spring scrimmage. I mentioned this to you in the spring on this show, that I saw that and my description is he plays with some springy shock. Now, there was only about 30 snaps in that scrimmage, so it's not like there were 90. It's not like we had a lot to look at in terms of the number of plays. But when he was out there, I put him down there. He earned a plus. He played nickelback. He was kind of second or third string at nickel because you had Gross in there and Chester Kimbrough was in there a little bit. Ade Willie, I'll play in that nickel position. But there was one play when Terrell Henry was blocking him, and he attacked that block, same foot, same shoulder, defeated the block, and made a real nice shoulder tackle, hard tackle on Davion Prim, the running back. That was a plus play. I might have recorded, 15 or 20 plus plays for the whole team that day. That was one of them. So Malcolm Jones, as a freshman, true freshman, redshirting that year, as they say, he's a guy that showed up on film, so to speak. So good constructive freshman year, preserve the redshirt status. There's going to be opportunities on special teams and possibly in the playing group. So he's in the middle of it. Looks all right to me, Malcolm.
Yeah,
looks like he's on schedule.
I just wish all of them the best. I'm a father figure for everybody. That child that play, I'm a father figure, and I feel if they do something wrong, you got to coach them. They got to be coached.
All right.
If you don't coach them, they don't know. That's why it's called practice. You learn from your mistakes. You sit down and do film, and I I go to some of the high school games. I got a son that's playing high school right now. He's 6'3". He's 330. He plays center. Last year he didn't have no offers. This year he got 15 D2s and 3D offers this year. So, like I explained to him, you just got to take your time. Him and his brother talk all the time. Him and Malcolm talk all the time. And, like Malcolm explained to him, it's going to take time. You're going to get your offers. Just sit there and wait. You got to sit there and wait your turn. And that's how my son Malcolm feels. He's saying, I'll just sit there and wait my turn, Dad.
That's great.
And I feel the same thing. I'm going to back him on what he said. He said, Dad, if I don't start, I don't start. If I play, I play. But I know I'm going to get me some playing time somewhere down the line. So I'm going to be like a daddy. I'm going to sit behind him and be behind him 100%.
That's good. I think that's a good, healthy disposition. That's exactly what I've seen a lot of players come through here, and that's exactly what my advice would be. Not that I know everything, but I think that sounds good. Now, your younger son, is he a junior right now or a senior?
He is a senior.
Going into a senior year? Well, that's great that he's got those offers. That's awesome. So keep working with him. And get that film out. Get that film out. Hey, Malcolm, I appreciate those. That's a real good comments. Appreciate you joining the show. Anything else?
Oh no, y'all all have a good night.
All right, there he goes. Thanks a lot, Malcolm. Appreciate it. Thank you, Malcolm Jones Sr., father of Michigan State freshman safety Malcolm Jones Jr. So it's good to have him chiming in with us. I'll put this back out here. We'll get back to the. Sorry about the dead air here. I'm trying to find our phone number again to put that back on here. There we go. There it is. All right. Let's go back up here to the comments. People that have commented so far tonight. Live here tonight. Malcolm Jones Sr. Gene Riddenauer says, nice surprise tonight. Football on the horizon. Young Feezy Baby says, hello all. Flow Magic 20 says, good evening, everybody. Jay Chevy checking in from Washington, D.C. Old Tuck is the Bell Holstein. Is that how you say that? I should know my cattle, but I don't. Jaron Glover seems to be in the mold of a Willie Boyer kind of guy. All right, Old Tuck, you misspelled Willie. I think Jaron Glover is a little bigger than Willie Boyer. I remember Willie Boyer being more of a svelte type of guy. Could be wrong. Willie Boyer was Perlis era. I'm going to say 1990 or so, 89 maybe. Guy from Florida, I think. Michigan State didn't throw it a whole lot, but he was always like the number 2 or 3 receiver. Brian V says, agree with Old Tuck. Need to bring back the Yackle position. Matthew Johnson says, I saw a thread on the message board pointing out Michigan State's lack of recruiting wins in Georgia. What are your thoughts on that? Well, this year, I don't know. I mean, they've been in on some. There's more to come. Nothing in terms of like heartbreaking defeats. Michigan State with 12 commitments. We talked about this last week. Not a lot of room for a lot to add at this point unless there's attrition after the season. Maybe room for 3 or 4 more. I'm sure they're trying to position themselves for more than that. Defensive tackle, area of need. But 12 commitments right now, not a ton of room. So I think Michigan State's 12 commitments are solid. I can see why Michigan State would like all of them. On3 does not do a per star average recruiting ranking. I'm going to mention to them that that's something I'd like to see because it's something I'd utilize. I went over to Rivals.com and they don't, if you click on the button, it doesn't repopulate in terms of star average. But if you just keep score and do it and look at it, Michigan State is number 26 in the country in Rivals.com star average. Meaning 12 players, it's hard to have a top 20 class when you only have 12 recruits. So there's not a room for a 20-man class right now. So I think the 12 that they have are pretty solid. Good. I think the 12 that they have are good. So let's see here. Jason G says, hey, Comp, what is your starting back 5 on D? He says, mine are Brantley, Tatum, Mangum, Gross, and Spencer. What say you? All right, Brantley, you've got Tatum at corner. Tatum is playing corner, finished at corner last year, did okay against Penn State. Penn State might have tried to pick on him once, didn't work, but they didn't really target him much. Tatum was fine as a true freshman last year in emergency role at corner. But Tatum, I think, would prefer to play inside at safety or in the slot at nickel. But if he's the best corner, they might be trotting him out there again. He's competing there at corner. So it could be Tatum, could be Caleb Coley. Terry Roberts is getting a look. But if you've got Tatum, I mean, I could see Brantley and Tatum starting a corner. I got no argument with that. Mangum and Spencer at safety, that's the plan. And you've got Gross at nickel. Could be Gross. If they think that Central's going to be more of a run-heavy team, which I don't think so, then you start Brule there in a 4-3. But I think it'll be a 4-2-5. I wouldn't doubt Gross being the guy. Gross is a guy that tackles well, runs pretty well, has had his struggles with assignments. If he overcomes that, he could be quite good there in the slot. That's an X factor. That's a variable that I'm not banking to be a great area for Michigan State, but I'm not closing the door on the possibility that Angelo Gross could rise up and be a good nickel this year. He's got the athletic ability. Part of it's getting on the same page and all those things. He made a couple plays in the spring scrimmage where he closed on the ball and had a couple nice pass defenses, undercutting the pass. So I'm not going to close the door on Gross getting it done there. So I don't hate your starting lineup. He's in there competing. And he's going to get better because he's a mature athlete. He's maturing as an athlete. He's starting to get into that man frame now. Mr. Bowman says, hello, guys. Just finish up with this is Spartan. I don't know what that means. Jason G. from Fort Myers. Good to hear from Jason G. I was down in Fort Myers in March. Best of luck to everybody down there still cleaning up from the hurricane devastating through there. I was down there for spring training and over there at what's called Terry Park, I think. Did a lot of practicing over there. It's good. It's good. So here's to you in Fort Myers. Mr. Bowman said hello from Harper Woods. Marlon Milano says go green, go white. Chris Foulin says, is it true Angelo Gross is leading for nickel? And I'm surprised Malcolm Jones isn't getting more reps there. He was blowing guys up in his high school film. Malcolm Jones, we just talked about him, and he was good in the scrimmage also. Jones repped in the slot area. Ade Willie repped there last year, and if Ade hadn't gotten hurt late in the season, he might have been on the field there in the slot area, in the nickel. So when the coaches talk about there's depth and competition all over the place, that's what they're talking about. The bottom 20, the bottom 40, Saban used to talk about the bottom 40 tells you how good your team is. The bottom 40 this year is a lot better than it was last year. A lot better. And your top 40, your top 44 is your two deep. So your bottom 40 is third string and below. Malcolm Jones is a third string guy, and he's solid. He's getting there. That bottom 40 is, even though you've not seen them on the field, and I've only seen them a little bit, but indications are that bottom 40 is getting better, and he's part of it. Job Bear from Winter Garden, Florida. Great to have him here. Mr. Bowman said, this is Spartan MSU, another great show now. Comp, what a great night. Hey, good for you, man. He's having a great Tuesday night. Chris Foulin says, is Spartan Stadium getting any upgrades in the future after the new facilities are finished being built? One thing at a time, that the facilities, they're still working to pay for the new facilities. So, and then when it comes to fundraising, more and more fundraising is going to be directed toward the collectives. So across the country, you might see a freeze on facility upgrades as everybody tries to collect donations for recruiting. And then that money's going to go away a little bit. But the stadium, I don't know. The upper deck on the east side, it's tight up there. They had trouble at the end of the year last year with water pipe situation, closed it off for the Indiana game. It's not a wonderful situation up there. It's okay to watch a game up there. I've watched games up there. In recent years, I've tried to go to one game every year and sit in the stands. I might not be doing that as much now. I did that when my kids were young. You want to go to the game with your kids once a year, right? Once or twice. Maybe I will with my daughter once this year, but So I was up there for a couple games in recent years. So I know about the lines and problems with concessions up there. And it's difficult up there. You can watch, it's good sight lines, but amenities are not so great. So it needs some help up there. I heard Greg Ianni, former deputy athletic director at Michigan State in charge of facilities. He's been on the Tim Stout show every week and it's very insightful. He mentioned that I think he kind of recommended a few times that they should just tear that east upper deck down and reduce capacity. He knows more about it than I do. My body rejects that initially, but he knows more about the facility challenges there. I don't know. I think it looks great the way it is. I know there's challenges up there. I don't know. I don't know much about facilities, but no, to your question, I've not heard anything about facility upgrades for the stadium themselves. I mean, they're always looking at it, trying to improve things. I can tell you it looks like there's a new coat of paint there and some of the things. They do what they can for bathrooms. That grass is beautiful. Scoreboards are good. So, J.J. McKay, 6Man1, says, yeah, here from TISMSU also. I don't know what that means. He says, good evening from beautiful Keweenaw. We talked about that last week. Winfield, Louisiana, Matthew Whitaker. Steve Smith says, fellows just coming from This Is Sparta MSU2. Okay, I get it. You guys have been watching This Is Sparta on WKR here locally in East Lansing, I'm guessing. Great. Or wait, no. Oh, this is part of the other podcast. I got you. I'm a slow study on some of these things. This is part of the other podcast. That's Jason Strayhorn, J.U. Kulkrick, Otis Wiley. So great. If you guys were checking that one out, it's good to have you coming on over and being a part of this one. Let's get back to the questions now. I don't want to spend too much time on roll call. Get back to Michigan State student 25. He says, what would you put the odds at for who starts the Washington game? Now, that's an interesting way how he's phrased that. He's not asking who starts the first game. He wants to know after the Central Michigan and the Richmond game, who starts that huge game against Washington. And the Washington game is huge. It's huge for Michigan State to show that they're better than they were last year against the Huskies. Now, last year, Michigan State dealt with a lot of injuries on the way out there. Turned out Washington was a top 10 team. And after Michigan State lost that game to Washington, I said, you watch Washington, they are going to be in the top 10 at some point this year. And at that time, Washington was not in the top 25, was in nobody's preseason top 25. But I said after that game, they're going to be in the top 10. They finished number 9 in the country. Bringing back those receivers, bringing back the quarterback, Penix, all kinds of firepower. Michigan State's going to be an underdog against a very good team that day. Winning would be outstanding, but second importance is Michigan State needs to be sound on defense and not just shuttle relay to the end zone every time Washington gets the ball. Michigan State doesn't want to go out there and give up 55 points, obviously. So Michigan State needs to show they can play presentable defense against one of the best offenses in the country. That would, as long as they come out of it healthy, that would bode well for future weeks, I would think. And then the important games right after that is it the Maryland game right after that? I only cover Michigan State. I should have it memorized, but hey, I'm 1 week at a time. The game after that, Maryland at home, that's going to be crucial. Maryland's pretty good. Would they win 8 games last year? Won a bowl game, beat Michigan State down in Maryland last year. After the Washington game, that Maryland game, winning that game is going to be a big determinant as to whether Michigan State can become a 6-6 or better team, beating Maryland in week number 4. Mammoth game in week 4 at Spartan Stadium. Last year I said, going to Washington, we didn't know Washington was going to be that good until I watched them on film before we went out there in Spartan. And in the pre-snap read preview, after watching Penix earlier in the season, I said this guy is on par with C.J. Stroud. We knew he was good at Indiana. I was like, fellas, he's better. And that's everybody knows that now. But I said back then, the week after that against Minnesota was going to be the bellwether game for the season, and it turned out to be true. They were terrible against Minnesota for various reasons. Coming back from the West Coast, that was a big challenge. Michigan State had all kinds of injuries, and on defense, they were very much stationary, keep it simple, 2 deep shell, and Tanner Morgan just easily just tic-tac-toe all the way through all day, plus the running attack. And Minnesota was very good that day. Minnesota peaked at that time. And I said Minnesota was going to be a top 10 team. I was wrong about that. Minnesota went out and lost to Illinois. Had a good season, but Minnesota never quite got better than they were at that time. They were good that day. And Michigan State wasn't. And that week 4 against Minnesota really told the tale for the rest of the year. To Michigan State's credit, bounced back and beat Wisconsin, which surprised me. Went to Illinois, beat Illinois when Illinois was one of the hotter teams in the Big Ten, which stunned me and impressed me what Michigan State did at Illinois that day. And then Michigan State blew a chance to, get to 6-6 and get to the postseason when they lost to Indiana. And Maryland game stung as well. What was the other one that they let slip away? I don't know, but you lose to Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Washington. Those 4. You lose to Maryland, lose to Indiana. I can't remember what the other one was. You guys know what happened. Ohio State. I said Ohio State. 5. Maryland. I don't know. Is my math wrong? Anyway, Minnesota game was the swing game last year. You win that when you're 6-6. Hey, they're not as good as Minnesota. I know that. This year, it's Maryland. Maryland game. You're underdog right out of the chute in 5 games. The Big 4 and at Iowa. You can still win one of those games. You could win one of those other 4. It can happen. Those are the 5. The other 7. 3 of those 7 will determine whether you're 5-7, 6-6, or 7-5. Playing against Maryland, Minnesota, Nebraska. Those are the 3. You win all 3 of those, you go 7-5. If you just win your winnable games. You win those 3 and you upset one of those 5, like you win at Iowa, then you're getting into 8-4 territory, which would be a remarkable season if they're able to pull that off. It's possible, but players need to play like we don't know if they can. I'm not saying they can't, but that's the nature of college football, the cyclical nature of college football. Unproven players moving to the first string with new roles, new assignments. Can they come through? Michigan State has some good, solid bodies in some of those positions. They're trying to get them coached up right now. We'll begin seeing what it looks like on September 1st against Chippewas. So the question, who would I put the odds at for who starts in the Washington game? I'm saying that the Central Michigan game, it's 50-50. I'm calling it 50-50 right now. Not going out on a limb. Sorry about that. I said that Noah Kim was the guy all spring, and Hauser's been coming on strong. So, for the Washington game, Hauser's the guy that's got the momentum right now. Don't quote me on this, but I would probably lean 51% toward Hauser for that one for some reason. Just a gut feeling for right now. I don't know. All right, question number 4, Don from DeWitt. He says, what developments have you observed that surprised you, and has your assessment of the season going forward, has my assessment of the season going forward, has it changed? He's asking. What developments have you observed that surprised you, and has my assessment of the season changed? That's Don from DeWitt. My assessment for the season has changed a little bit. Hearing all this talk about the size of the players. It's not just the coaches. Ron Armstrong, I invited him to be on the show tonight, but I've not heard back from him today. Maybe next week we'll get him. I'll text him right now and tell him to call if he feels like it. But, Ron was talking about when he's out there, he thinks that just the size of the players, it's a different looking roster. And I've heard Jason Strayhorn say that as well. And those are guys that have played, that have suited up, and they've got a better eye for those things than I do collectively. They've got a better eye for that, obviously, inside and out, individuals and everything. So, I'm not going to be able to do this. There it is. (616-439) 11:58. Nothing like a little dead air. Hey, it's a little bit. We are primitive here. It's a one-man operation. No commercials though. except when I say go over to SpartanMag.com and become a subscriber and give us a thumbs up. Give us a like over here. But, people whose opinions that I really respect, Jason Strayhorn, Ron Armstrong, they go to practice and they see just bigger human beings, offensive line, defensive line. I see it too, to an extent, but those guys really see it, and there's depth there also. We knew that would be the case when you just look at the rosters and the heights and everything, but it's a beefy team, a team that's got some running around ability too. So that and the competitiveness at a lot of these positions is a good sign as well. Hauser coming along is a good sign. Kim was good, but if something would have happened to Kim, then you're throwing Hauser in there. The more this goes along, the more Michigan State feels that they've got two functional game-ready quarterbacks. The way the wide receivers are playing, you're hearing good things about that. That's good as well. Defensive backfield, not sure about that yet. And I know when we talk to coaches, everything's going to be all rosy. I do like it when the coaches come out and tell you what they're not happy about. I think that's positive, and I've written about that a little bit this week. But we don't know about the kicking situation. We won't know. I mean, Jonathan Kim comes in as a fifth-year guy. He's got some maturity about him. Good foot talent, if you will. No idea what that's going to end up looking like. But, yeah, I thought Michigan State had a good chance to get the over. I'm not a proponent of betting. I don't advocate betting. I don't suggest what you should bet on and everything. But people talk about overs and unders, and I think it's an over based on Vegas this year. Don't make that bet based on what I think. I'm just looking at that as the barometer that is being set nationally by people that are not attached to any program. I think Michigan State's going to do better than that. And I think there's a little chance they might do much better than that I may not have thought a couple of months ago. Now, everything is always positive in preseason. But last year at this time when Michigan State was preseason top 20, I was kind of pumping the brakes a little bit. Somebody mentioned that on the message board earlier today, and I appreciate him pointing that out. That last year at this time, I was like, oh, hold your horses. Nobody's talking about the kicking game. Let's just wait and see. I didn't see Michigan State as a top 20 team last year. I would have been pleasantly surprised if they'd done it and it didn't turn out that way. This year, I think they're better than what Vegas thinks. Might be wrong. What else did Don ask about? I had a couple other comments about his question. What other developments? Also, Nathan Carter at running back. There's 3 or 4 things. One, the size in the trenches, the depth in the trenches. That's one reason that's kind of one observation. I don't want to say surprised me, but it's a development that's positive. That Nathan Carter, for real, making some plays out there. He's got to show that he's durable. But a coach told me in the summer that that's an upgrade. And it's looking that way this fall camp as well. You may say, well, if he's making plays, what does that say about the defense? Well, sometimes it might be against the second string. I'm not sure, but definitely they've got to get that straightened out as well. But Carter is a dangerous little running back. I'm expecting him to start and be a good, productive Big Ten level running back. Number 3, the wide receivers coming along. Trey Mosley stepping it up a little bit. Montorie Foster answering the call so far. Fitzpatrick, also Alante Brown. Positive. Now we're hearing about Antonio Gates. So good things at the wide receiver position. Have not heard anything negative about the quarterbacks. That's good. And the comments from Jay Johnson today on the Big Ten Network saying that they are light years ahead of last year. Not a bad thing. So, all right, question number 5, Gas Station Coffees from Parts Unknown says, if the tight end run blocking does not improve to Mel Tucker's satisfaction, could we see an offensive tackle replace the tight end in short yardage situations? Or is that tipping our hand too much to the defense? No, I mean, there's teams that do that, and they're not worried about tipping hands. They're just going to power it, and this is what we're going to do. Plus, they'll run play action out of that also. Good question. NFL teams do it. D'Antonio's team used to do it. You're asking me if there's a chance an offensive tackle could come in and play some tight end. If you do that, you kind of need that guy to have a little bit of hands to be a little bit of a threat, at least to get out into a pass route. Brandon Baldwin, starting left tackle. Could he move out? He has a good basketball background. I'll bet he's got pretty good hands. I don't know. Ethan Boyd, their fastest offensive lineman. Could he do it? I don't know. I think they probably just want to do it with their conventional personnel. A lot of people are asking about that, if they can get a Yackle into the equation. If troubles continue at tight end with blocking, it's something that I would think at least gets discussed. but we've not seen that in 3 years. And, they think that Malik Carr is going to come around as a blocker. It was sounding good through the first week of practice there. Heard he was making progress in the spring. Evan Morris, former kickoff specialist, looks to me like he's the first tight end off the bench. Or if they start with 2 tight ends, I think he's the guy. I watched him in the spring, and that's when I first started to realize that they're serious about him, Evan Morris, as a potential playing group guy. He's been around for a while. He's got a big frame. He's been working on it. But the interesting thing is that he's kind of following in the footsteps of Tyler Hunt. Tyler Hunt came in as a punter. My notes on Evan Morris at tight end: functional, decent motor, and pass protection. Got knocked off balance once by Adeleye on a fake spin move. He was with Malik Carr as a second tight end. Decently quick feet on an outside zone to the right. He was aligned as an H inside the left tackle. Got downhill through the A gap into Cal Halliday. Pretty good contact. I gave him a plus on that, Evan Morris. Just saw him in run blocking for a few snaps. Whatever he's done, he is he's the number 2 tight end right now. That's what it looks like. Now, what about, let's see here. Take that one off. So that's the tight end situation. Question number 6 was Adam from Grand Rapids. We already addressed his question. Question 7, TN Spartan from Tennessee. He says, is wide receiver Christian Fitzpatrick a sleeper on this roster? By the way, let me, you know what? I was going to run some things. I'll just, hold on. Oh, crap. I had some video I was going to run just to give you guys a little more entertainment value while I'm talking and gabbing and those things, but I didn't quite get it all set up. But I might, let's see here, not that. It's not that one. What is this one? Oh, now you caught me. That's what we do. Is that the one? Nope, that's not the way we want to do it. Not the way we want to do it. That's not the one. What about? We don't want to do this one either. We kind of wanted to reduce that one. All right, we're just going to abort that mission. So anyway, I wanted to have some practice video back there for you, but didn't quite get that done during rehearsal. So we apologize about that. But I was thinking about you guys, so you don't have to look at me the whole time, so you can look at some practice stuff. But didn't quite, I got that set up here, but I didn't quite get the whole thing set up, and you saw what happened there. My bad. Anyway, Christian Fitzpatrick, a sleeper on the roster. He says, is he a sleeper to have a significant impact? Sleeper to have a significant impact. He could, I heard good things about him in the spring at 6'4". He dropped a pass in practice the other day. We saw that in some of the film that was released. But, you need that big body guy that can post up a little bit in the red zone. So significant impact, I think it's possible. I don't think he's like a 40-plus catch guy this year, but I think he's a good, solid role player. He says he's a local kid that's been grinding behind the scenes, earning and waiting for an opportunity. In my opinion, I want that type of kid on my roster, says Tennessee Spartan. He says, because it just means more to the guys like that. Plus, you can't teach size, 6'4", 220. Does it seem like the reviews on him have been positive? What are your thoughts? To answer your question, yes. I've heard Courtney Hawkins mention him without being asked about him. And yes, Christian Fitzpatrick is right on schedule. He's going to have an impact. Significant impact, I won't go that far. But I won't close the door on that possibility. Brandon Dury from Parts Unknown says, Do you think Noah Kim will still be quarterback 1 come September 1st? I think Hauser has a very bright future, but I would love to see Kim get a shot. I think Kim is capable. I think he's smooth. I think he's going to be poised. But Hauser's closing. I'm calling it 50-50 right now. It's probably going to come down to intangibles. They're probably both going to play well in the second scrimmage, although we're not going to hear much about it. But I suspect they'll both play well. And I think it's going to come down to intangibles. Mel Tucker talks about the quarterback needs to be your best competitor. So I think it's going to be a guy that Tucker perceives as the more competitive guy, the guy that with the intangibles, that inspires teammates, that rallies teammates, those type of things. I think something like that tips the scales. I don't know who's ahead in that regard. I would assume maybe Kim does because he's older, but I don't know for sure. But I think it's going to be tight. Old friend Tom in Lansing says, to hitchhike on Spartan Ox's post, nothing but crickets so far about the kickers. Punting looked okay at the spring game, but place kicking was kind of hidden. Tom asks, any input at all in the kicking game for this year? Jonathan Kim, the transfer from North Carolina. Tucker says he's got a strong leg. Started out well. I've not heard much about what kicking looked like in the first scrimmage. And if it was bad, I'm sure the coaches would not be mentioning that. They don't want to volunteer too much information, but I've not heard much else. I agree that it is critical. He's competing with Steven Rusnak from Clarkston. Tucker affectionately refers to him as Rusty. Tucker says it's good competition. Tucker's complimentary of Rusnak, but we've seen Rusnak kick a couple times each of the last 2 seasons, and it's not been pretty. Credit to him for hanging around and competing. A couple other walk-on freshmen are in the program. I don't know much about them. It's going to be Kim. In my estimation, last year you had Ben Patton transferring in late from Auburn just before the season started. I think after camp began, actually, around this time. A guy that had played for Auburn, had experience, didn't turn out that great. He has since retired. Jack Stone, true freshman, came in with high accolades, was expected to win the job. Patton won the job. They went back and forth, up and down. Not good. Snapper went away from them. Not good. It was interesting that DiNardo said today that Michigan State's special teams coaching was the best he's seen on the Big Ten tour thus far this year out of 10 stops. In terms of the number of coaches involved, head coach being involved, tempo and urgency. That's good to hear because special teams was a wreck last year. I don't know much about Kim. Second string at Carolina behind a good one for a long time. Dan Orner, former Michigan State kicker who transferred to North Carolina during the Saban years. He's kind of a kicking guru. Jonathan Kim is one of the guys he's coached and helped along. Orner says he's going to be the guy. He's going to be fine. He's going to be good. That's all I know. So we actually knew more about Ben Patton last year, than we did Stone or Kim. And we knew a lot about Patton. He had some chances against Auburn, was pretty solid. He came in, struggled. So that's a big X factor. And to answer your question, not hearing much about it, things are quiet, which is not a bad sign. Question 10, Green Dog in Detroit says, do you realistically think Scotty Hazelton could have a short leash and potentially have his job in jeopardy if defense struggles early in the season? I've talked to some other people about that. Interesting question. I don't really see what the benefit of that is. I know that some NFL teams have done it and 1 or 2 teams have benefited by some midseason assistant coaching changes. Nick Saban back in 1998 fired his defensive coordinator, Chris Kosh, after 2 games when Michigan State was blown out against Oregon. That was not released to the public, but that's what happened behind the scenes. Saban took it over because Saban is Saban. Tucker is Tucker, good defensive coach, all that, but I don't really think that's his personality, nor is it anything he wants to do in terms of firing somebody at midseason. What would that do? That would satisfy the masses, maybe give them a little bit of meat, red meat to chew on. But if you get a midseason situation and the defense is struggling, you can do a couple of things. You fire the defensive coordinator, now what? Is Tucker going to take it over? Maybe, I don't know. Is that better than just sticking with your coordinator for 4 years? And even if you know that this is his last year, have him try to fix it, keep chopping, and retain his job. I think usually that's the better approach, the approach that would make the most sense. And then at the end of the season, then you make changes. But firing in the middle of the season, I've seen very few instances when that has helped any college team. You can let me know sometime when that has happened, but it did not help all that much in '98. All right, question number 11. Mel Tucker. I mean, you can like Saban fired Lane Kiffin before the college football playoff. Just personalities there, toxic. A couple of wise guys, right? Saban got sick of him, said we can win it without you. Brought Sarkisian in, finished the season, won the national title. That's an extremely talented team with a different set of circumstances. And Kiffin wasn't necessarily fired because the offense was playing poorly. It was just two guys with too big of heads, too big of egos. All right, question number 11. Mel Tucker mentioned, who's this from? I didn't write who this question was from. We're almost done with these questions. We'll get back over to the comments area and we'll wrap this up. He says, Tucker mentioned that they have about 5 guys repping at the nickel position. He says, we know Angelo Gross is one of them. The questioner asks, any thoughts on the other 4? He said he mentioned different body types at the nickel position, so I'm thinking linebackers like Carter or Joyner, safeties like Jones, or corners like Ade Willie or Chester Kimbrough. I figured Brule is part of the 4-3 package. You're right, Brule is part of the 4-3 package. When Michigan State went 4-3 last year, Brule went to the slot, Sam linebacker type, and he's good there. Michigan State's got good personnel to go 4-3 when they need to against run-oriented teams. But that I'm sure that Tucker had that in mind when he's talking about different body types. Whether you call that a Sam linebacker in a 4-3 or a slot linebacker, it's the same area, but he had Brule in mind as one of those body types. Brule is one of them. Angelo Gross is one of them. Darius Snow played it last year, but I don't think he's ready yet. I'm not sure he's going to be ready this year. I don't know that for sure, but I'm not really considering him as a candidate right now. Ade Willie, redshirt freshman, repped there last year, almost got on the field, but got injured in practice last year behind the scenes. He's repped there in the past. So Gross, Willie, Brule, Chester Kimbrough started there last year, lost the starting job at halftime of the Washington game, went about down to third string. Really didn't see him much again until maybe very end of the season. Malcolm Jones, we talked to Malcolm Jones Sr. earlier. Malcolm Jones repped there in spring scrimmage. Looks like he's got a future. He's in there also. Justin White's played the position a little bit. Good speed, but smallish guy. Probably one of these other guys are probably a better candidate. Although Justin White continues to get a lot of playing time, practice time. But I think you're looking at Gross, Willie, Brule, Malcolm Jones, Chester Kimbrough. Those are the guys. Nolan from Grand Rapids, question number 12 says, looks like Michigan State is eyeing to have alcohol sales for 4 home games, beginning with the Washington game. Curious how you expect them to pull this off. You separate vendors versus alcohol sold at the normal concession stands, etc. How do you expect this to affect the crowds, the bathroom situations, etc.? Great question. I have no idea. Is there a whole lot of extra room in there for alcohol? Beer, I'm guessing. You're not going to get any hard liquor night in there. So, no idea. Not sure what it's going to do with the bathrooms. They can't really change the bathrooms. I don't know much about concession management. Good question. I know that has a lot to do with fan experience, and it's important to a lot of people out there, but I just really don't know. All right, question 13. Cool Breezes from Royal Oak says, hey, Comp, curious if Isaiah Johnson is repping on both sides of the ball. I saw him in one of the practice videos at wide receiver, wondering if he is seeing any time on defense. I really liked his film at defensive back. Good question. From what I've seen, no, just wide receiver, and he did have good film in high school, and I like that physicality. I think just offense, because a true freshman just starting camp, you don't want to throw too much at him. He's learning the playbook on offense. Isaiah Johnson just on wide receiver from what I can tell. Question 14, which freshmen do you see burning their red shirt this year and having meaningful contributions? We already talked about that earlier. I think Jordan Hall, maybe by Job. Sean Brown, dark horse at safety. Barberin, maybe, I don't know, probably not. But Sean Brown, somebody's got to play some safety, so keep an eye on him. Question 15. Hey, Jim, hate to bring up the tunnel incident again, but I heard some rumors that there was a video from a different angle in the Michigan Stadium tunnel that would have shown a different perspective, but was covered up by the blue wall. Any truth to any of this? Normally, I would think this was BS, but nothing would surprise me from that school down the road. Interesting question from Sparty from Pawleys Island, South Carolina. I heard something like that when all that was brewing. I heard from some people like, hey, man, there's another angle that's going to come out. Another angle never came out. I've not heard the rumor you're talking about, but nothing would surprise me. But I can't verify that. Question 16, Rex Will Spartans from Parts Unknown says, which class of 2022 defensive back are you most exciting about? He's talking about the 2022 recruiting class, defensive backs. Who of those am I the most excited about? Well, that group includes Jaden Mangum and Malik Spencer at safety, Dylan Tatum at corner, Caleb Coley at corner, Ade Willie in the nickel area, Malcolm Jones. So you're looking at 6 defensive backs from that class, which is a really good class. I'm going to say Malik Spencer. And I know Big Mooby's been pretty high on him also. Smooth, covers ground. I'm going to say Malik Spencer. Didn't see him much last year because he was injured most of the year, got on the field the last month of the season. But to answer your question, I'm going to go with Malik Spencer. Let's go back over here to the comments area before we wrap it up tonight. Appreciate everybody checking us out on a Tuesday night in East Lansing. Sorry I couldn't get that practice video together. I'm mad at myself about not, because I got that ready, but then I forgot that there was another step I needed to do. Because you saw what happened. It ends up back here. I'd rather have me be reduced in the corner and that stuff going on, but I blew it. So I'm not in midseason form. But even if this were October, I'd probably still screw that up. But I tried. Disappointed myself. All right. Marlon Milano chiming in from Belleville, Michigan. Steve Smith, Harper Wood's finest. Give us a like if you get a chance. Also, subscribe to this channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. Subscribe to that channel. We'd love to have you as a SpartanMag.com subscriber. If you're enjoying this content, you love SpartanMag.com and all the work that Paul Konerdijk's doing, our associate editor, Noah Sprunger, our intern extraordinaire, Jason Killup, our recruiting anchor. And I just lost my... Hold on a second. Look out. Who else we got? Jake Laskawa, great intern. Kenny Jordan doing some work for us. Rico Cooney. Good team over there at Spartan Mag. Dwayne Dangler says, ironic, I'm from Central, but I grew up a Spartan since early. With all the optimism, I'm hoping for a turnaround this year. You talking about turnaround for the Spartans or the Chippewas? I saw my guy Matt Owain this summer. I've known him for a long time. I told him, hope you have a great season, and I do. I like him. He's a good guy. And it wouldn't doubt me if he got him rolling there a little bit. I don't know what you guys are talking about with the Tiz MSU show. I don't always know what's going on, so I missed the memo on that. Trevor Thompson says, if they're going to stop the run, why was Tuck complaining about bringing a safety in the box? He was complaining. He was saying that he wants to be able to stop the run with a standard number, 6 or 7, and keeping 2 safeties deep, split safeties. He wants to be able to have the luxury of stopping the run without committing a safety to the box. So that's a big ask, and that's a component of a really good defense if you can do that. Against some opponents, you're going to have to bring the safety down early, if not right after the snap, but a pre-snap. So he's complaining that he wants to be able to do it with the standard number, which is asking a lot of the people up front. And Michigan State does a lot of two-gapping, so people have to two-gap and win and get off. Someone's got to defeat a block and make a play if you're going to do it without the safeties being up there initially. If you can keep the 2 safeties back there as unblocked players, keeping an eye on the pass game, it's a great step toward having an overall great defense. So it's a big ask, and he's trying to get that out of them. Steve Smith and somebody else having a little conversation here. Dwayne Dangler from Mount Pleasant says, why do you think Tucker was expressively upset during the most recent press conference when including the offensive rush and defensive rush? I think it went into a Saban routine a little bit, where Saban gets irritated, and it's a call to action to his players and his assistant coaches to get crap done. That's what that was. And he was talking to his team through the media. He seemed irritated that there was it sounded like an error in tight end blocking, and that's too old of a story. So I thought it was good. That is quality control. He was taking it public. So the other part of it was the rushing defense. He's going for next level there, trying to be able to stop the run with a standard number rather than having to put an extra man in the box. Ray Leahy says, how does Scotty Hazelton still have a job at MSU? Asking for a fan base. Well, last year I thought he was on the clock, but got a mulligan because they had all those injuries. So now he's got year 4. So, and he knows it. He knows he has to have better than a defense that was ranked outside the top 100 in total defense. Although yards allowed per play is the more applicable stat rather than total yards allowed. J.J. McKay says, my 2 favorite MSU shows. This is Sparta, MSU, and Comp with SpartanMag Live. Thank you for that. From up there in Keweenaw. Trevor Thompson says, communication is not the reason they gave up about 35 points per game year over year for 4 years. They need defensive backs around receivers. Point well made. But, and you can have like a solid B- defense and still give up 24 points a game. When you start giving up 31, it might only be 1 or 2 key communication breakdowns. And Michigan State has had their problems. Hold on. I'm getting a phone call here. Sorry about that. But hey, we're primitive. Heard from Ron, also heard from someone else. But anyway, but good point. But yeah, you have to be able to cover. And last year there were different problems in different games. Maryland game, I just watched the first half of that a couple nights ago. They were playing a lot of off coverage that day. And, who's the guy that transferred from Georgia? Amir Speed was just not getting the job done that day. Minnesota game after the injuries, we talked about that. 2 deep shell, tic-tac-toe, picking them apart easily. Indiana game, a lot of press coverage. Against a team that wasn't going to throw it a whole lot. That was interesting. So, they tried different coverages, mixed them up a little bit later throughout the season. Sometimes, individuals were getting beat. It was a collection of things. Anyway, point well made. Paul Hodgson says back home in Grand Rapids from the Mackinac Straits. Good for you. It's an up north guy. Good for you. Hope you had a good time up there. Let me know if you went. I don't want to be the stereotypical fudgy, but hopefully you went to what, Murdoch's or Ribas. Got it done up there. Bill Husion says it sounds like the depth across the board will make for high quality practices. If nothing else, it's hard to prepare for Big Ten opponents without quality scout teams. You're exactly right. That's a great point. Scout teams will be better this year. Mark Webster says Coach Tuck needs to focus on being a head coach. Coaching corners just didn't work. Good hire for a dedicated CB coach. Trevor Thompson says should have kept Ron Burton, number 15 against the run and good pressure. Mr. Bowman says Spartan Stadium is turning 100 and needs major upgrades. James Bannon from Sterling Heights in the house. Steve Smith, 313, says good night, tis MSU and Spartan Maggers. I don't know what tis MSU is. I missed the memo on that. Trevor Thompson says special teams were horrific. Why is Ross Ells splitting time between nickelback and special teams? Ross Ells is a linebackers coach by trade, pretty much. So, and it's special teams as well. So it's a way to get another set of eyeballs on the nickel position. Because Harlan Barnett's coaching safeties, Delgado's coaching corners. They'll all have a little bit of a piece of the nickel situation, but It gives L's a set of eyeballs to focus on something when they're not working on special teams. Because you're only coaching special teams a few periods each practice. So during regular practice time, you can either have Ross Ells go into his office and working on special teams, or you can have him on the field, put another set of eyeballs on an area that he has some experience in, the linebacker level. So have him focus on that nickel position, which is a position that gets a lot of conflict against today's offenses. You're playing the run, you're playing the pass, you're playing the RPO. You are the overhang guy a lot. So that nickel position is in conflict and is on an island and is in a problematic situation in today's offenses more than in the past. In the past, if you went back 25 years, you might have on the staff, you might have an inside linebackers coach or an outside linebackers coach, and maybe the coordinator would have one or the other. But inside linebackers and outside linebackers, you don't hear that term as much anymore because you've got two inside linebackers and a slot guy in 4-2-5. You don't hear about inside and outside as much. You still have your two inside guys, but it makes sense to me why Ross Ells would be another set of eyeballs on the slot area. Need to get better there and everywhere. What do we have here? Pretty close to wrapping it up. Mark Webster says the Big Ten feedback was exciting, improvements, depth, and better special teams. Trevor Thompson says 5-7 is a problem, land and not acceptable. His seat will be getting warmer. I don't want players blamed for not running or stopping the run. I gotcha. Connor Theo has another question about, I love the show. As always, curious about your thoughts about Mel's comments about being able to defend the run with the two high split safety looks. Is it foreshadowing an issue or motivating the guys? It's, like I said earlier, it's motivating the guys. It is a call to action, and it is it's a big ask. Every defense wants to be able to stop the run with 9 and keep 2 unblocked guys, especially against running quarterbacks. If you can account for one of those two guys account for the quarterback keeper on RPOs and zone read keeps with one of the safeties, rather than having one stop in the run inside and that guy, then you've got nothing in the middle. He's calling for them to do that because Michigan State has the size and they've been built to be able to stop the run with the standard number. The standard number is 7. 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers if you count the nickel guy as a linebacker. Usually you got 7. There's usually 8 gaps inside. So somebody's going to have to defeat a block and make a tackle if you're doing it without safety help. And they're built with the size to do that. Big defensive ends, going out and getting Adeleye. Zion Young's a big defensive end. Bogle is a big defensive end. The defensive tackles are good. They're going to rep in. They've got depth. The defensive tackles are going to be good. And they're playing in front of 2 good-sized inside linebackers. Jacoby Windman's a big inside linebacker, 250 pounds. Halliday's added 10 pounds. Now he's a good-sized inside linebacker. I've not seen him run yet. Hopefully for his sake and Michigan State's sake, he hasn't lost any speed. But with good girth and size and ability inside and 2 linebackers like that, somebody should be beating a block and making a play. So he's calling on that front 6, front 7 to get the job done. And maybe it's Gross he's talking about. It's talking to all of them. So it's a big ask, but it's a big step toward having big improvements on defense. That's what that's all about. Trevor Thompson says, is Jack Nickel going to play? I've not seen indications of that. Looks like Evan Morris is the number 2. I've liked Masunis a little bit. I thought Jalen Franklin blocked well in the spring. They haven't normally played more than 4 tight ends. They bring in, Tynell Hopper from Boise State. Maybe. I don't think the kid from Norfolk State's going to be able to block. He can catch the ball a little bit, but he's not going to block the way they need it to be done. I think Masunis is ahead of Nickel. So I'm not expecting it. Could be wrong. I'm just reading tea leaves there. Dwayne Dingler says, as we inch toward game day, what's your thoughts on how the season will go? That Maryland game is big, right? I think they'll lose to Washington. At Iowa, it's going to be very difficult. Last week, it looked like McNamara might have gotten hurt. I'm happy for him that he's healthy, but if he'd gotten hurt, that game would have become more winnable, but I'm glad that he's okay for his sake. At Rutgers, nothing is – who would have thought Michigan State was going to lose to Indiana last year? Michigan, at Minnesota is going to be difficult. Those are the swing games. Maryland, at Minnesota. Nebraska at home on November 4th. Don't count that as an automatic win. I think Nebraska had decent talent last year. They got a quarterback transferring in from Georgia Tech who's had some injuries in the past. But that Nebraska game is going to be just as tough as the Minnesota game, just as tough as the Maryland game. Those three will decide whether you go 8-4, 7, or 6. So, dude, I don't know. I'm guessing. I think Michigan State's going to be better than last year. Last year they were 5-7, so I think 6-6, maybe 7-5, 8-4 is possible. They're going to be in tight games, close games. Got to make your field goals in clutch time. Got to be on the same page at all times. Need improvement there. Clock management, decision making, and a game's going to be crucial to decide games late. They're going to be in position. They'll be in position to win 8. When you go 8-4 in the season, you're always like, man, if this would have happened, we could have won 9. But we're also fortunate that this and this didn't happen and we didn't go 6-6. Last year, Michigan State was 5-7. If they beat Indiana, they're 6-6. I don't really want to say the Maryland game could have gone a different way. I don't know. But they easily could have gone 3-9 last year. They beat, Wisconsin in overtime. And, the Rutgers game was close on the scoreboard at the end, but Michigan State was actually in control there. Illinois game was close on the scoreboard at the end, but Michigan State was in control for most of that game. So I'm not going to say that those two could have gone haywire, but they almost went 6-6. They almost went 4-8. I think they'll be better than that, which is not a great statement, but you can be good. You can be 7-5 with the schedule and be a pretty good team. Lose 5 games, go to a bowl game, win, go 8-5. That would be a good step of steadying the ship and getting ready toward what I think could be a quite good 2024 in terms of getting the program, getting some traction going again. Now, it's hard for me to come out and say they're going to go 8-4. We don't know what the quarterback's going to look like. We don't know what the receivers are going to look like. We don't know what tight end blocking is going to look like. Got a lot of young guys in the defensive backfield. We don't know what the kicker is. Don't know what the punter is. It would be foolish for me to come out here and say, hey, all those are going to be great. 9-3, it's happening. Write it down. We don't know. But there's players involved there that have a chance to be pretty good. And if with that schedule, you can play good football, win 7 games, and let's say you don't get it done against Iowa, you lose 24-21, and there's a play call here or a clock management there or a blitz call there, and everybody's mad about one singular call that might have cost you the game. But you're in the game at Iowa, that's not a bad sign. Ohio State's always been difficult matching up with them. But if you compete with Washington, you compete with Michigan, get in that game, rivalry game, compete in those games, you can look good at 7-5. Kind of like in 2012 when Michigan State looked good in a lot of games. They went 6-6. There was a good team in there somewhere. They just needed to find something on offense because the defense was coming around a little bit. At Michigan State right now, the defense hasn't shown it, but maybe it gets better. Maybe the offense gets better. I'm not sure. They're not going to be dominant on either side of the ball. 2012, they were becoming dominant on defense. Went 6-6, but then they had those 3 great years after that, 13, 14, 15. You can be pretty good at 7-5. If you're competitive in these other games, win your winnable games, that's a nice step. Win a bowl game, 8-5. I think that would be excellent for the program. And you can say, well, 7-5 is not good. I'm used to Mark D'Antonio going 10-2. Dude, this is not LSU, okay? You can be pretty good at 7-5, set up base camp at 7-5, and try to improve on that as you go, and maybe make a climb and see what it is for the future. I asked that, and I've made this point before. What do you think about Ole Miss football? Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. When you think about them, do you think they're pretty good? Ole Miss, pretty good, right? Your first thought is good team, right? How many games did they lose last year? 5. You can lose 5 and wind up in the top 25. South Carolina last year. Was UCLA also? Did they lose 5? Pitt lost 4. They were like in the top 25 at the bottom of it. But who's the other one? No, Mississippi State was 9-4. I think UCLA, South Carolina each lost 5. Ole Miss, good team, right? 5 losses. You can be a good team with that type of schedule and lose 5 games. You can't do that every year and expect everybody to be happy with that every single year. But it's about building year on year, recruit, and build off of it. With this schedule, this year, these circumstances, I think that'd be progress. And if I were Michigan State, I would take that. The coaches wouldn't take it. They think they can do better than that. They think they've got something, and they're coaching to win more than that. I'm just talking about it as your friendly reporter, your correspondent here in East Lansing. Trevor Thompson says it's not the offensive line. The run scheme is unimaginative and vanilla. Few misdirections and perimeter or stretch plays. Few stretch plays. Few misdirection plays. They run just as many of those as a lot of teams. I mean, they're not going to do the GT counters like as often as some teams. Like who does, But they're just pretty much, you can call it vanilla, but it's conventional run game offense. He says offensive line coaches like Cap and Bowman struggle with the run scheme. I don't know. USC tried to hire Kapilovic. Bowman's the reason Michigan State finished number 3 in the country that year. He was a difference maker that helped establish the run in 2013 to win the Rose Bowl. If you don't have Bowman, you don't have a Rose Bowl championship. So I disagree with you. J.J. McKay says, didn't mean to steal your response. Bradley, just have it. Mr. Bowman says, Iowa always seems to find those very good tight ends. They do. They recruit them. They evaluate them. They develop them. No question. Eric Gazarowski says, I agree, Trevor. I watched the 09 Michigan replay the other night. The offense was so inventive, a completely different approach. 09 Michigan game. When they had Treadwell, they were aggressive. They were balanced, had a run game, had NFL receivers, had an NFL quarterback. All that stuff helps. And a defense the defense was just starting to come around. But yeah, they were aggressively imaginative kind of that way. But, imaginative, I think that word is overused. What do you want to see? Double reverse passes? You saw the flea flickers in 2021. That was pretty imaginative. But you got to have a run game to set that up. A lot of the plays Michigan State was running in 09 that were working, or in 2015, were conventional offensive plays. And the plays Michigan State runs now, conventional offensive plays. Most teams run conventional offensive plays. That's why it's called conventional. Now, there's others. Tennessee is unconventional, on the edge. They're different. They had great speed at wide receiver, which puts people in conflict last year. But, Michigan was really good on offense last year. Really good. Not very imaginative. Didn't need to be with those running backs in that offensive line. You follow? Jason G says, Tucker mentioned bad tight end blocking. Have you ever seen Gilmore blocking drills? No, we don't get to watch. We watch early practice and those things, and we see what they're working on here and there, but we don't stay long enough to really watch tight ends bang against defensive ends and so forth. Trevor Thompson says, Spartans have 9 workable tight ends. Maybe the coaching is subpar. Mark Webster says, Jay Johnson needs to do more this fall. Clearly, 21 showed some creativity and aggression. 22 was so vanilla at times. Well, they couldn't run the flea flicker as much. They tried it, but different personnel. You didn't have Kenneth Walker. But listen to what you're saying there. You're saying 21 showed some creativity. 22 was so vanilla at times. I promise you, very much the same playbook. They just didn't have K9. And Peyton Thorne was a little bit banged up. And but it's the same playbook, just not as successful. It's not like creativity was different. J.J. McKay believes it, says 22, or agrees, says 22 is very predictable. Most teams are predictable. I can sit and watch Alabama or Georgia and say they're going to run the ball, and boom, he runs for 8 yards, runs for 12 yards, runs for 20 yards, runs for 5 yards, runs for 10 yards, touchdown. Predictable. You knew what Alabama was going to do. You just couldn't stop it. So even the great teams are predictable. Try it sometime. JJ McKay says 6-6 to 8-4 since we have the number 3 schedule in the FBS. 8-4 would be an excellent season in my opinion. It'd be a really good sign for the future. Steve O says Kim hasn't gained a pound of muscle in 3 years. He doesn't do the work. He's lazy in the weight room. That can be the only explanation. Actually, he has gained weight. I don't think Kim is still 185. The roster that you're seeing now with the weights, they are from like 18 months ago. Michigan State's not real aggressive on updating those. I think Kim is more than 200. They keep saying that the updated roster is going to be coming out with updated weights any day now, but we've been hearing that since July, so I don't know. He, if you look at him, he does not look like a small quarterback. He's not as slender as he used to be. He's slim, but so was Kirk Cousins. All right, Steve-O. Let's see. We're gonna move on here. We're about ready to wrap this up. Appreciate everybody posting and all the questions and everybody checking in. Hopefully, you're got some good. Had some good. What do you want to call it? Good Tuesday night football warm up here in August. Hope everybody had a good time with it. I think we're going to just go ahead and wrap it up. We got some other comments here, but I can't get to them all. I appreciate all the comments. Appreciate everybody checking in. Appreciate the big crowd we had tonight. Really appreciate it. Just wish that I'd gotten the film together for y'all so we could have had even more fun. I'll work on that next time. So maybe Tucker needs to yell at me for me to get my crowd together and block better and do my job better so we can play with 2 deep safeties, split safeties, and stop the run with a standard number. I'm going to work on that for y'all. Anyway, thanks for coming in. We'll be coming back with Spartan Mag Live again soon. SpartanMag.com got all the coverage, preseason, camp, Michigan State, Underground Bunker message board. It's all where all the conversation is, the daily narrative on Michigan State sports, the church of what's happening now, Underground Bunker, SpartanMag.com. Go check it out. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate the support. We will see you next time. Spartan Mag Live.